disc landed at a ranch at Corona, New Mexico. The rancher turned it over to the Air Force. Rancher W.W. Brazell was the man who discovered the saucer.
What I thought was a star began coming in my direction at a very rapid rate of speed.
The unidentified object, which some sources thought might be a blimp, moved slowly down the Pacific coast from Santa Monica and disappeared south of Long Beach.
I saw a UFO, and it went down the river, turned right at the United Nations, turned left, and then down the river.
UFO Classified. UFO Classified. No more plausible deniability. Fact, fiction, or the truth. You decide. And now, the new voice of the high desert, the hostess of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes.
Happy Fantopia Friday, everyone. I'm Erica Lukes, and you are listening to UFO Classified here on the best digital broadcasting network in the world. It's my personal opinion. Actually, it's a lot of other people's opinions. This is such a great station, and after my show, you have got Ladies' Night coming at you. So Universal Child will be coming up next, and then Restricted Airspace and Hyperspace with Solaris Blue Ravens. So grab a margarita, get in your comfy pajamas, and get ready for a great night of radio here on KCOR. I want to thank all of my friends, Wayne, Jeff, Huska, who is you guys are all tuning in, and then I want to give a shout out to my friends down under. So I have got some new friends that I'm hoping to get good information from about sightings in Australia. The Australian sky watchers and enthusiasts, Sydney UFO hunters, and my friend Andrew Arnold are all there, and as you all know, there are some pretty interesting things that take place there. It's very cool for me to connect on a daily basis with people from all over the world because many of us are having similar sightings, and it's really, really awesome that we can share experiences about how to investigate, develop protocols, what kind of equipment we're going to use, and what types of things we're going to do to hopefully push research forward when it comes to some of this stuff that we're seeing, particularly the orange, amber orbs or fireballs that I like to research, and I'm doing that with my partner, Jeff Cox. So, with all of that aside, I want to tell you guys that you can find me on UFO Classified on Facebook or my website, ufoclassified.com. I will be doing some research and posting some news about the orange orb phenomena, and also great reliable sources for you to find research and maybe get a little hoax information from my friend Scott Brown as well, because we know those are on the rise and it's always exciting to see. I want to just take a second to say when I research things, I often find people that I'm drawn to. And one of those people is my guest tonight. Gary Heseltine has so much, gumption, if the right word is. He's got so much attitude. He's got so much determination. When I watch videos with him where he's speaking at different conferences, you can see this passion in him that I don't think any other researcher in the world has. I love that about him. He is a retired British police detective constable with over 24 years worth of service, which is just incredible. And he was also involved in the London bombings inquiry as a specialist interviewer of the first responding police officers. He is the founder of Prufos, which is the police reporting UFO sightings database. He did that in 2002. It is a very, very cool thing. You need to get on there and check it out. He has over 425 cases, and 900 British police officers have come forward, which is pretty cool, which he has reports from them he's investigated. And then Heseltine is also the founder and editor of UFO Truth magazine. So if you don't know about that, you need to subscribe, and we will be giving you links later. It is dedicated to bringing the latest UFO news and stories from around the world, and he has incredible researchers that contribute to this publication. Nick Redfern, one of my friends, is a contributor. Richard Dolan, many other people, and this is nonsensical. And the way that it should be done is as a scientist, as an investigator, and what we really need to see when we're trying to move this forward and get it out to the world. He has worked closely with a very controversial figure at Rendlesham, with the Rendlesham Forest case. And he's worked with him for 4 years, Colonel Charles Halt. They've been working diligently to try to piece together the most famous UFO case in the world. And it's sparked a lot of fervor again lately, always. He's appeared on TV. You can find him on YouTube. You need to listen to his shows, his speeches, his conferences, and I hope I get to hang out with him when I'm over in the UK in a couple months. But Gary, thank you for staying up late. And you're just over there by the fire with your dogs, hanging out.
Yes, yeah. I'm waiting for these questions to come that are going to pin me to the wall. I'm frightened stiff.
You should be frightened stiff.
Well, that's okay. What I've been told, so I'm frightened.
I promise I'll be relatively nice, but I don't know. We might have some callers, though.
Ask away anything you want.
Okay. Well, the first thing I want to talk to you about, and I know that you've talked about this on many, many other interviews, but I want to kind of show or establish for my guests how you got involved in this, what sparked your interest into spending your life researching the UFO phenomenon.
It's actually a very long story and a very strange, circuitous route as to how I became a researcher at the age of 42. I had a sighting when I was 16 that, as time went on, seemed to pull me into the subject. But very strange how that happened. I'll tell you about the sighting briefly. I was walking my then girlfriend home next to, and as we walked along a long, narrow footpath, there was a large, in England we call them allotments, where people grow their own vegetables. On one side, and on the other side, you would say high school building and sports fields. And as we were walking along this long path, in the distance there was a housing estate with all the power on, and it's about 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. It's August 1976. It's one of those rare nights in England where there's not a cloud in the sky and it's a lovely warm night. Believe me, we don't get many of those. And basically, when we were passing the school fields and these allotments, we suddenly noticed a bright white light, no distinct shape, bigger than the background stars, moving from our right to left, and it was much bigger than the background stars. There was no noise. It was moving very slowly, akin to kind of gliding, how it appeared to me to be gliding. And what the strange thing was is that after it went past us, so if you can imagine that you're walking forwards and there is a path in front of you, the object passes you at about a 60-degree angle in the sky. As soon as the object passed by us, a strange thing happened, in the fact that all of the housing that we could see approximately 200 to 300 meters further along ahead of us, suddenly the power cut. The whole area of housing, power, lights, electricity in the houses went out. Now, rightly or wrongly, my girlfriend, who was called Dawn, she became upset and associated the light with somehow triggering this power cut. We stood there, we watched, and as the object very slowly moved further to our left, the housing went off again. So there was 2 power cuts.
Oh my gosh.
So this is really weird. Now, the strange thing was, I had my bicycle with me, and so I said, right, okay, get on the bike, on the crossbar, as we would say in England, get on the crossbar, and I will ride you quickly back to your house, which is what I did, and it wasn't far from there, maybe a couple of minutes from there. And then I decided, no houses, and the entire area was plunged into darkness, no power on whatsoever. I just quickly dropped her off, and then went back the same way to the same long, narrow footpath that was passing my school, and then got onto a road called Grange Lane South, and then rode as fast as I could, trying to catch up with this light that I could see on my right side ahead of me. Now, a strange thing kind of happened. It was generally moving very slowly, no noise, in the direction of my home, and that's why I decided to try to follow it. Now, I have this clear memory of approaching a left turn in the road, a bend to the left, near to my home, and on the bend, you went from complete darkness before it, i.e. the power off, and then after the bend, all the power was on, and all the housing in the distance, including my home, the power was on. And I remember getting to that point where you go from actually darkness into light, and looking over my right shoulder, and I'd managed at that point to get slightly ahead of the light. Okay? So I have this distinct memory of looking over my right shoulder. You can imagine just putting your arm out to the side and just following your arm. It was literally just beyond the length of my arm. And then I literally rode perhaps another 200 metres, going around two corners, Westerdale Road, onto Baysdale Road, which is where I lived. And we lived at number 3, so it was very close to the entrance to that road. I dropped my bike outside, the power's still on, and I rush into the living room where my parents having a cup of tea. In England, we would say supper time. So they're having a sandwich, cup of tea, and I say, come outside. I think there's going to be a power cut caused by this strange light. And they just look at me bemused, as you would. Mm-hmm. They don't move. So I then quickly run through the hall, into the kitchen, through and out the back door, into the back garden, turn around and look back at my house just in time to see the very same object that I'd been following coming over my rooftop, now slightly a higher altitude, and I'm at the bottom of the garden looking up back at my house. It comes over the rooftop, and I don't know why I do this, but if you're in class in school and you want to answer a question, you put your arm straight up in the air. Well, that's what I did instinctively, and I don't know why, but instinctively I put my arm up in the air and then watch for the light to approach my hand, or the light, if you can imagine looking up and it's approaching the light, passing my arm, and as soon as it went past my fingertips, the entire area plunged into darkness.
Oh my gosh.
Now, it's ridiculous. How can I predict a power cut? So what I realized at that moment was that having moved to a second geographical position, that light must have had some kind of interaction with a power grid. I had no knowledge of the subject. I'd heard of flying saucers, but had no interest up to this point. But on that night, when that happened, I thought that light has somehow triggered a power cut, because it's ridiculous. What are the odds of me being able to predict a power cut like that? It's ridiculous. So I knew that I'd seen something very strange.
So what did your parents, what happened with your parents? What did they say?
Well, I go back into the house from the garden, and I said, I told you, and they're just getting candles. They're kind of ignoring me. It's pitch black. They're just getting candles. We were, believe it or not, it's hard to believe in this day and age, but we weren't even on the phone in 1976. And the nearest phone was like a call box in a shop, believe it or not, about 5 or 6 minutes away. So who am I going to ring anyway? My parents just said it's a coincidence. They weren't interested. They were more bothered about just getting candles lit so they could see what they were doing. I didn't even check the newspaper. It's ridiculous, and I don't know why, but I never checked the newspaper the next day, the Scunthorpe Evening Telegraph. But that's what happened.
Wow.
But the strange thing is that in 1976, this was just before the era of VHS video recorders, Betamax recorders, the first 2 generation types of video recorders and portable entertainment. And basically, all I could do was go in the next few days to my local high street, which was called Ashby High Street, which is only a small suburb of Scunthorpe, the town in which I lived in Lincolnshire. And basically, I knew that there was a second-hand bookshop. And I went into this second-hand bookshop, and I asked the guy behind the counter, have you got any books on flying saucers and UFOs? And he looked at me a bit strange. But anyway, he said, yes, there's a few over there. And there was about 10 or 12 books on this shelf. Now, here's the amazing thing. Of all the books written in all the world, in all the bars, that kind of line, the first book that I pick up turns out to be the last of Major Donald Kehoe's 5 books. 1973 it was published, but obviously this is 1976, but it was a new copy. And it was Aliens from Space, the last of his 5 books. And when I got that, I was automatically impressed by the fact that he was a military person with lots of military links, and he was telling you about pilots chasing UFOs, as in structured objects. He was, but here's the strange thing. So not only do I find what is my ultimate hero of mine on the very first book that I get, but the strange thing was that in that book there's a section on the 1965 New York blackout.
Oh, that's cool.
That was rumoured to have been triggered by UFOs. And so straight away, I get a validation moment. When something that kind of, mine was much smaller, but in a sense it said that UFO, strange light, could trigger power cuts. And I get this validation moment in that book. And of all the books in all the world, in all the bars, I think that's very strange. But it wasn't really until the mid-1990s, so we kind of missed 17 years of my life after that, 18 years, where I go away, have children, get married, get divorced, have another child, basically go away, have a life. But it's only in about the mid-1990s when the story picks up. And that's strange in itself, because I come across a magazine called UFO Magazine, which, for a lot of your readers who are interested, was run by Quest Publications, ran from Britain, under a guy called Graham Birdsall. And Graham Birdsall was very famous, and he did many lectures in the States, and he organised many conferences in the UK, including a big 3-day international conference. So all the top people you can think of that era used to come to Leeds, where he held the conference, every year. Well, guess where I worked? I worked in Leeds. It could have been anywhere.
Oh, wow.
But I worked in Leeds. So here's the strange thing. I then, having picked up this magazine, it kind of reawakens my interest. And after such a long time away from buying books and things like that, basically I then decided to get all the new crop of books, read those. So over the next couple of years, I started to get the books, read the books, and without realising it, I began to feel a sense of frustration that even though I'd been away all those years, all the books were saying more or less the same thing, that there were still pilots chasing UFOs, and it was still being trivialised in the media. And without realising it, a sense of frustration was created, and that manifested itself in a very strange way, because it's going to sound strange, this, but I've told it many times. Everybody dreams, obviously. I dream, but most of the time, I don't remember my dreams at all. However, on one specific occasion, probably 1997, 1998, that kind of time, I had a dream, and I woke up with a very vivid scenario going round in my head to write a film screenplay about what could cause disclosure. Okay, a set of circumstances. Now, I'd never written anything in my entire life, okay, in terms of stories, whatever, screenplays. I didn't have a clue about how to draft things in the right way, to put it out in the right way, lay it out in formats, etc. But I basically had read plays, so I just did it with the name in the middle and the dialogue underneath, kind of like you'd get if you get a reader play in a book. And that's what I did. And basically, within 6 weeks of that dream, I'd reached a beginning, middle, and an end of a storyline that then had many redrafts. But basically, within 6 weeks, I'd ended up with a fictional scenario, Hollywood big-budget film, of what could trigger disclosure.
Oh my gosh.
And here's the strange thing. I then took I printed it off. Now, bear in mind, I'd never written anything, so I didn't know if I could write. And so what I thought was, well, I'll try to get some feedback from my colleagues at work. So I took the script in, and I'd said, I've written this script. Do you want to have a read? And they all went, had a bit of a laugh and joke. But eventually they said, yeah, okay. And the thing was, it kind of went round the police station. And everybody came back and said, this is fantastic, make a great film. But of course, who are they? They're just police officers. They're not in the business of entertainment. So anyway, the feedback was good. So in the end, I began to think, I actually need somebody within the UFO field to give me their inside take on it. Somebody who's a bit of an expert. Well, I thought, well, who better than Graham Birdslew, who's the editor of the magazine that I'd started to get regularly. And guess where he lived? 11 miles away. 11 miles away.
That is amazing.
In all the bars in all the world, 11 miles. It's ridiculous. So it's almost as if somebody's saying to me, go on, follow this path.
Oh, it absolutely is. And I've had the same thing happen myself. So it's not surprising. That is incredible.
So that's what I did. I drove round on a Sunday. I was a bit embarrassed, a bit nervous, and I put this printed script through his letterbox, the office letterbox, and then thought I'd never hear a thing. And then about 6 weeks later, he rings me up out of the blue one tea time and says this script's brilliant. He says it'd make a great film. Fantastic. He was really enthused about it, and he actually wrote me a letter to give to anybody within the film business, which I still have and framed, where he was basically saying this is great. And he
I would love to see that. Oh my gosh, I want to see that picture. Oh, I would love it. That'd be so great. We've got to.
Now we'll digress, but I've always said that if I ever did make a breakthrough into TV, and we'll talk maybe about the TV series that I've nearly got for the last 2 years, including you in the last year.
I know.
Right, we'll talk about that in a bit. But
we will, and we've got to go to break really quick. But we're
we'll come
talk.
back.
I know. I'm so excited. So all of you, thank you for being here tonight. We will be right back.
Stand by. This is UFO Classified with Erica Lukes. The phone lines are open now at 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio. More UFO Classified with Erica Lukes on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. After this.
Where'd that shot come from?
Alpha 3 to Eagle 1. We've got company.
From Tay Publishing, codename Eagle Force, the saga begins.
I see them, Alpha 3. All units stay low and let them come.
From the eyes of a special ops officer, Joe Michael Riggy brings to life this amazing story of survival, the unknown and the unexpected.
Here they come. Hold your fire. Hold. Now.
Codename Eagle Force at TayPublishing.com.
Now, broadcasting in digital HD radio.
What if maintaining a healthy weight was as simple as drinking a cup of coffee? With Valentis coffee, it's that easy. Harvested from the world's most pristine coffee farms and packed with the purest ingredients on earth, Valentis takes losing weight to a completely new level. At Valentis, we believe everyone deserves a chance to be healthy and fit. It's pure, natural, healthy, and delicious. Click the Valentis Healthiest Coffee banner on the KCOR Digital Radio Network website and take the Weight Loss Guarantee Challenge. Valentis Coffee, simply the world's healthiest coffee.
When danger is imminent, will you be prepared? Now many mobile devices can bring you critical information from local sources you trust. With the unique sound and vibration, wireless emergency alerts keep you in the know wherever you are. Learn more at ready.gov/alerts. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
Looking for a radio show like no other?
We need something brand new.
Then tune in to the KCOR Digital Radio Network, Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, and get ready for the quantum shift. The world is evolving around us. Will you be ready for the shift?
This is one of the most important decisions you'll ever make.
The Quantum Shift, hosted by Dr. Sam Muggsy, will enlighten your understanding of the world and bring you mentally into a better understanding of existence. The Quantum Shift, Quantum Shift, Quantum Shift, Quantum Shift. Live Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
Alien Deceptions, a suspenseful sci-fi romance thriller by Tina Marie, featuring the tantalizing Erica Jones and the mysterious Russell Hamilton. An out-of-this-world book of fiction based on years of document facts and files the government does not want you to know about. At least, not yet. Alien Deceptions by Tina Marie. Available now at Amazon.com or get a signed copy at TinaMarieEntertainment.com. Get your copy now.
You're listening to UFO Classified with Erica Lukes, where the truth isn't hidden beneath the black lines of a Sharpie.
That's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
To be on with Erica, call 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio.
Radio contact.
Share your thoughts on the show on Twitter by using hashtag KCOR. Or head over to the live chats at KCORradio.com.
The audience goes nuts!
And now, your host of UFO Classified.
Are you ready?
Erica Lukes.
Erica Lukes.
Welcome back, my friends, and happy Fantopia Friday. I'm Erica Lukes, and it's always great to be here. I look forward every week to my shows, especially this week because I have somebody on here that I think is just a super cool, really dedicated, passionate man who has done so much and can teach all of us so much about how to hone in on our investigative skills. Even if we're not researching the subject, it's important when we're out there looking up to know what is what and how to really be a good observer. And my guest tonight, Gary Heseltine, will talk about that. But before the break, we were talking about how he got into it with his first sighting with his girlfriend, following this sphere, and then when he was a little bit older, having these coincidences happen. And we're going to continue our conversation now. So, Gary, start where you left off.
Well, we'd got to the stage where I'd sent the script and that Graham Birdsall had come back to me. And he was very pleased with the script I'd sent, and he was very enthusiastic. So the next strange thing on my journey to becoming a researcher was he said, well, I do conferences, and I'd read about in the magazine that he did conferences. He says, would you like to come along? I'll give you some complimentary tickets. So I then went to this very first UFO conference that I'd never been to one prior to, and it was held in Leeds, where I worked. What a coincidence. And it was a big international conference, and there was John Mack there, and I think there was Bud Hopkins there, and there was lots of people. So I kind of just watched, and this is where it gets even stranger. So in a sense, I was going to my first UFO conference, so that's an important step. I was seeing some very credible people like John Mack, who impressed me, and he was obviously a highly regarded psychologist. And basically, without realizing it, that sense of frustration was growing within me, but I didn't realize it at the time. And this is where it gets a bit more strange, because what happened then was I had another very vivid dream. And as I say, everybody dreams, I dream, but I don't usually remember. But this second very vivid dream was create a police database, write about what you know. There must be lots of police officers out there who have seen UFOs. Now, I was already aware from reading historical books on UFOs that there had been some British police officers that were well known within the history. So I had about 6 cases involving about 10 police officers. And I basically had this very vivid thing, create a database. Well, where am I going to go to get publicity? Well, I'd met Graham Birdsall by this stage. He'd invited me to the conference. So the first thing that I did was I went to see Graham Birdsall at his new offices, and rather than being 11 miles away from where I worked, he now worked only 2 miles away from where I worked. So this is getting even more ridiculous. So I went to see him, and I said, I've had this dream, I've had this idea for a database of police officers. And because he was always looking for credible people, he basically said, great idea. And I said, I'd like to write an article in your glossy printed magazine to launch it. Will you let me write an article? And he said, yes, great idea. So what a thrill for me. He allowed me to write my very first article. Bear in mind, I'd never written any article at that point, just one screenplay, unpublished. And basically, he said, yes, you can do it. So in January 2002 issue of UFO magazine, which was in W.H. Smith's, which is a big glossy newsagent in the high street, and the racks and racks of magazines, it was there up on the 4th shelf, and it was there with Cosmopolitan and all the other kind of things. So, Christ, what a thrill that was for me. And so once that happened, straight away I started to get letters from retired police officers who would obviously watch from afar and been reading the magazine. And they said, great idea, let me tell you about this. And so I knew straight away that it was going to work. And the fact that I was still, at that point, a serving police officer, I knew would work anyway. But once I started to get police officers contacting me, sometimes by phone, often by email, sometimes by private mail, then I realised that I was tapping into something that was likely to work. And so that's really it. And there were, if I look back, and I'm writing now a book about the police officers' cases, and in the introduction of, I call it the 5 steps that led to the creation of the database. And along that way, you know, from having a sighting, from finding the book, Donald Kehoe, to going to Graham Birdsall, to having a dream, you know, the script, going to Graham Birdsall, to then having the dream for Proofos, getting the article, it's like 5 steps that led me at the age of 42 to put my head above the parapet and say to anybody, I believe in UFOs. Some UFOs are ET, based on the evidence of high caliber witnesses, including police officers, and I'm going to research police officers. And so 14 years on, we now come to 2016, and I'm writing the book. I have over 1,050 cases involving, I have over 1,050 police officers, British police officers, involved in over 550 British police cases. Now, that's a lot.
Oh, my gosh. You know, and that's incredible. And I just have to say, I don't think you would ever in a million years find that sort of cooperation in the United States.
Yeah, but you say cooperation. This is all done, in a sense, unofficially. It's just as I became more well-known within the UFO field, one of the things that started to happen, which I didn't anticipate, was that UFO groups saw the article and said, oh, this is interesting. Would you talk at our UFO conference? And this is obviously in the UK, in and around various parts of the United Kingdom. And I'd never done any lecturing whatsoever. I'd always been comfortable in front of a camera and had done some police interviews and things like that for TV. Been on Crime Watch a couple of times, which is a famous British show. Has been part of big investigations. And whilst I was always confident, I'd never ever done lecturing. And suddenly I was being asked to give a 75-minute lecture on how I became researching police officers. And what was strange, and I still find very strange, is the fact that I could do it. And I actually found that I loved speaking in front of a crowd. Most people run away. That's the last thing they want. But for me, something in my personality just it's not the attention, but I just love doing it and found it very comfortable to stand in front of hundreds of people. And because I was passionate and I thought I knew my subject, I think when you are passionate and you do know your subject, then it actually is a lot easier to stand in front of an audience. You have to know your subject, whatever it is. And I felt I knew my subject because, in a sense, I'd been following it from the age of 16 to 42 when I went public. So I'd had many years of following the subject, and I had read and pretty much watched everything. So, again, I look back now and think, Christ, now I've spoken at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C.
And that was so incredible.
But I've spoken there twice. I spoke there in 2010 at the Exopolitics Conference in May of 2000, and I got the Exopolitics Award for disclosure.
You did.
And I had no idea about that I was getting that, a genuine surprise, and one of the very rare times that I'm lost for words. But for about 30 seconds, I was lost for words. But I managed to...
Only 30 seconds?
It was only about 30 seconds, because I realised I had to say something when I accepted the award. But as he's leading up to it, I'm thinking it sounds a bit like me, this. And then it's Gary Heseltine. I'm at the back of the room, and everybody's clapping. I'm thinking, oh, shit. Oh, and I say, what am I going to say? And honestly, my throat went dry, and I'm thinking, hell, what am I going to say? But I managed to get to it in the end.
After 30 seconds?
After 30 seconds. Yeah, I can't stay quiet for long. And I'm sure you'd be the same, to be honest.
I'm sure.
Yeah. So basically... But the incredible thing is, though, that I had no idea that, one, I possessed the ability to communicate on this larger scale, talk, feel comfortable in front of TV cameras, radio, etc. And I just actually find it actually very easy. It's just one of those things I can't account for and find it easy. And I guess I'd always been a kind of a passionate person. But when you kind of finally find that you've doing something that really resonates inside of yourself, a bit like you now with what you're doing now with the radio show, you've got an outlet, you're going to be passionate about that because it's something that you care about. And that's what happened to me. But to think that I have stood at the same platform as Nelson Mandela, Gorbachev, Reagan, you couldn't make it up. And I've done it twice. And it's so weird. And I remember the very first time I spoke internationally, I was in February of 2010, where I went to the last Laughlin World UFO Conference, as it was, and I'm outside next to the Colorado River in the big casino, and the sun's beating down, and I'm thinking, this is weird. Somebody has paid for me to come here to talk for 70 minutes. This is bizarre. I honestly had to pinch myself, and I still do. But obviously I do many international lectures now, but I've never lost that sense of, wow, and I think that's good that you don't lose that.
No, that's interesting because my background is singing. I mean, I sang at the 2002 Olympics, not once but twice.
Oh,
wow. And and I always,
in front of the whole crowd.
It was very fun. I loved it. We had just a great opportunity, and I sang with two different bands at there were different venues throughout Utah or Salt Lake, and it was just a really amazing experience. But it's one of those things that I love. I feel the same way. And my voice teacher always told me, the second you lose those nerves, then you got to get out of the game.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's good to have a degree of nerves. And it's good that you don't lose sight of where you've come from. Because I still think I'm the same person. I'm perhaps just a bit more worldly wise because over time you travel. And when I was in the Air Force, you travel, you broaden your horizons. That's a natural process from somebody perhaps who stays all their life in one town. And doesn't travel. You've probably got a slightly different perspective because you've expanded your knowledge, as it were. But no, I am amazed at the journey that I've been on. And if anybody had said to me 20 years ago, you're going to be doing lectures all around the world, I'd have kind of laughed at them. I really would have. But now that I'm here, I'm enjoying it, and I kind of get frustrated. I'll be honest with you, I do get frustrated with the American scene in terms of lecturing, because I do lots of radio shows that are American talk shows, and yet I don't actually get invited to America very often. And I kind of see the same faces in all the posts, and I think, you might need a bit, you might need a bit of variation now and again.
Well, I dare to dream.
I realise I just get a bit frustrated because the priority should always be to get people who are interested and informative, and there's many fine speakers in America, but I get a bit frustrated that it's the same faces all the time.
Well, it is. And I mean, I think that's a great point, because to me, it's we're really losing out on a younger generation here. And I think there's a reason for that. It's because we do have the same speakers at every single conference, and we're not pulling in fresh, exciting people that can really target that younger generation, if that makes sense.
Well, here's something that absolutely hit me between the eyes in 2010 at that very first Laughlin conference in the big casino with about 700 or 800 seats there and big audience. And I'm excited, obviously, to be there. It's my first big overseas conference. But one thing that immediately struck me was the average age of the audience was probably 55 plus. And there were very few young people there. And for me, we are not doing something right. And nearly all the conferences I go to, it's still disproportionate. It's still probably 60, 40, 70, 30 even, 50 plus at all my lectures where I go to. And I think, well, we must be doing something wrong. And yet, for me, it's the most exciting subject in the world. But somewhere along the line, we are not getting our message out right. For whatever reason, if we need to be attracting younger people. Because in reality is that, you're no spring chicken in the nicest possible way. Neither am I.
Oh, hold
but you're very pretty. You can't get away with it.
You better just say
I'm
something
digging a
about
hole
that.
here.
Oh,
I'm digging a hole.
just dug yourself a hole.
But the point I'm saying in a very fun way is that there is a massive age gap. We need to be reaching people who are playing the video games at 18, 19, who are playing, alien games left, right, and centre. The people in the 20s and 30s, because we are not going to be around forever. And we've got some absolutely fantastic speakers on the circuit, but they ain't going to live forever. And I'm not being pessimistic, but they're not. And we need younger blood to come in with passion.
We do.
Take up what we need to do.
We do. Let's just get back to that spring chicken comment.
Well, I know you're only 24.
Don't lie to me. It makes me feel better.
All right,
that's okay.
20.
Okay. That's all right. As long as it's under 30, I'm totally groovy.
Really? Oh, sorry. sorry.
So, I mean, I agree. And I think about this, and I've found, you look at Jeremy Corbell, Ryan Sprague, I really, really like Ryan, and he has got so many great things to say. He's got a good attitude, and I think there are people involved in this, but it's just a matter of kind of combining forces with people and then making sure that we carry on the research that so many brave people have done, but then push it forward and then expand it somehow so we can really engage not only a younger generation, but women. We need to get women in this field.
Absolutely. We need to get all types of society involved, but we really do need to get younger people involved. Find a way. And for me, one of the frustrations is that because we are still in mainstream media terms, a fringe subject. Despite the success of Ancient Aliens, Hangar 1 and things like that, we're still seen as a fringe subject, a fringe science, although I think that will change sooner rather than later. I suspect that until we become mainstream, and we'll talk about later in the show, I suspect, my thoughts on how we can do that, I think it will be extremely difficult to attract a younger audience, because unfortunately the world that we live in is dominated by the 6 media conglomerates that run the world media. And if none of them are really playing the I'm really interested in UFOs and want to tell the truth game, then we're going to struggle, because they control the airwaves and media airwaves. And to make a breakthrough, we'd need to have, why can't we have a TV show that's on once a week, a regular show where we do the latest news, where we do this thing, but it's on mainstream, where we can reach out and say, look, we want followers all over the world. We want you to come forward with stuff. We want younger people. We can have a section under 25, under 30 or something like that. We can target and say we want to create a new generation and let people know. But we still, unfortunately, in the mainstream, we still are dealing with relatively small numbers, and we need to find a way to break through to a much wider audience. Like how many people turn on CNN in the morning, how many people turn on Fox News or whatever. We need that something where literally everybody does it as a matter of course, not some little satellite channel or whatever, or specialist history channel or whatever. We need a larger global presence. And once we then start making those inroads into the mainstream, I think very quickly we would surprise the younger generation with just how much quality cases and material is out there that would get them excited, that would want them to go. One of the frustrations I have is actually with the internet itself. The internet is brilliant. It's a fantastic tool of information. Absolutely, you can learn about anything. But unfortunately, in this field, particularly in this field, we suffer from millions of CGI websites that put out hoaxes as real, and people are gullible. They don't know what's real, what's a hoax. That we put out alleged UFO facts without corroboration on site after site after site. And people just say it, so it becomes real. And another site starts up saying the same thing. There's no real corroboration, nothing. So people have been led up a blind alley. They don't know the wheat from the chaff. Right. And this is a big problem. But what we have with the internet, the downside of the internet, is it's created tremendous apathy. And I call it the armchair UFO expert. Oh. Because now you can literally sit in front of your computer if you wanted 24 hours a day, go to site after site after site, get as much information on UFOs as you think is deemed fit, and you become the self-appointed UFO expert without never ringing anybody, without ever doing an investigation, without doing any kind of work. But they become the mouthpiece. They become the UFO armchair expert. But not one of them will get off their butt to go to a conference and pay the money to hear the real people who are doing the real graft, to bring the real stories. And that is a terrible disconnect of the internet. And
it is. And
it's millions of people. Because they say that after pornography, that UFOs is one of the biggest, flying saucers, UFOs, alien, is the biggest search term after pornography. Now, if that is true, there is an untapped, literally millions and millions of people out there who should be making a big say about this subject. And in all the polls that are taken, they always are very positive. Yeah, people 60% believe in ET.
People are interested. This is the thing. People are interested, but I will tell you, when you want to get involved in this subject and then you go to specific sites and you always see people slamming other people when they're trying to talk about their sightings, and even in research organizations, you've got people that are not really looking at the evidence and kind of almost debunking things or dismissing them. And that doesn't send a good message, I think.
No, it doesn't. And it is a massive problem. And I think whilst it probably applies to many subjects, in UFOs, it's a massive, massive problem because it's complicated enough. The whole subject is complicated enough without having to deal with these literally millions of armchair experts who will do nothing, and they don't actually do anything to promote the actual good work that is done by genuine researchers.
Exactly.
And that's the frustration.
Well, I think that, there's some pages that, Facebook pages, social media pages. I mean, it's like it is the same people posting on all of these, pages. And I think we just need to become aware of that as people that are genuinely interested in researching this or knowing more about this phenomena and know that. And then, organizations or researchers need to not visit these pages or sites. And we kind of need to have a cohesive, unit saying, we're not going to deal with this. We've got important things to do.
Yeah, but that's easier said than done because people are making a living, and a very successful living, making a lot more money than I am and what you are, because they're putting these stories out, creating these CGI hoaxes and putting them out to a gullible public, unfortunately, and they're making a lot of money. So for them, who's the fool? But I could never do that, but that is what we're fighting against. And because it's a fringe subject without a mainstream backing of acceptance, we're struggling.
Right. And that's going to change. And we're going to talk more about that and Rendlesham and some other exciting things when we get back. I'm Erica Lukes. You're listening to UFO Classified. Thanks for being there. We will catch you on the other side of the break.
Listen very carefully. This is Houston. Say again, please.
Houston, we've had a problem.
This is UFO Classified, live every Friday night, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. The truth is out there, just waiting to be discovered.
And now, if you will, accompany me on a journey to the future.
For more information on the host of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes, upcoming guests, as well as links to the past shows,
visit her website at UFOclassified.com.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network, broadcasting from a shack just south of Area 51.
Wait, that doesn't exist.
This is the KCOR Digital Radio Network. Now for the news.
Now, broadcasting in digital HD radio.
The disc landed at a ranch at Corona, New Mexico, and the rancher turned it over to the Air Force. Rancher W.W. Brazell was the man who discovered the saucer.
What I thought was a star began coming in my direction at a very rapid rate of speed.
The unidentified object, which some sources thought might be a blimp, moved slowly down the Pacific coast from Santa Monica and disappeared south of Long Beach.
I saw a UFO, and it went down the river, turned right at the United Nations, turned left, and then down the river.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
No more plausible deniability. Fact, fiction, or the truth. You decide. And now, the new voice of the high desert, the hostess of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes.
Welcome back, everybody. Obviously, this is Erica Lukes, and you are listening to KCOR Digital Broadcasting Network, the best place on the planet for all things alternative. And we have a great night of females here to expand your horizons. So stick around for Universal Child, Restricted Airspace, and Hyperspace. It's going to be a great night. And I just want to say in the next month, I have got some shows that will, just knock your socks off. I'm so excited. Gary's kicking it off tonight, but I have Alan Bentz from World UFO Group, and he was a former member of APRO, which you need to study up on that. And he never does interviews, so this is going to be great. And I also will be interviewing Chris Bledsoe, who again has not done an interview in a long, long time. And I have to say, he is somebody that is really important, really, really important. And I will tell you more about that in the next little bit. But right now I'm here with Gary Heseltine, who is the man behind UFO Truth magazine, and you should all subscribe to that. He is a brilliant researcher, a former detective, and somebody who's had experiences, but he's got passion. And speaking of passion, I just have to say, we talked about so many things on the break. I always tell you guys, I wish you could listen to what we're talking about on the break. But geez, Gary, where do you want to go now?
Ask away. What was it, Gary McKinnon you wanted to talk about?
Yes, we had a question about Gary McKinnon. So have you ever contacted him, or what do you think about him?
I have not met him, but was well aware of his story. And I have been in email contact with him in about the last year, 18 months. And we also had a face-to-face Skype interview for about an hour. And I found him very convincing. Now, bear in mind, I was an advanced interviewer of witnesses and suspects. Had psychological training as part of that. I'm pretty good at sussing people out, and he came across very well to me in that Skype interview. Why anybody should doubt his story mystifies me, because if you think about it, for many years the Americans really wanted to send him to prison for, I think, 466 years for hacking into their systems, databases. So he clearly had done that, and for them to want such a big punishment, then it's obvious that he trod on some toes and probably did see what he says he saw. I don't have a problem with accepting what he said. And the American intelligence services obviously clearly weren't happy, although I suspect it's probably done him a favour, because if he could get in, and he wasn't, I don't think, an absolute A1, the very top guy in the world hacker kind of thing, if he could get in, it obviously highlighted that their security systems weren't good enough. But the fact is, he got in and he saw, I have no reason to disbelieve what he said he saw. And we all kind of hear the stories, and his is another fascinating story that alludes to an off-world community secret space program. All very fascinating, and it's hard to get any genuine corroboration. But I've no reason to say, with the reaction that the Americans had, that he clearly had broken into and touched on some sensitive toes. The thing for me is, with Gary McKinnon, is I always found it quite amusing that the Americans were after him and the British government agreed to go after him and whatever. And I'd said to many people in the UK, this will never go to court. And they say, well, why not? He's done all this stuff. He's broken into this thing. And I said, well, if he goes to court, then it will, far from it being about him hacking into databases, it will become a debate as to what he found and the reality of what he found, i.e. did he find ET? And so that would become a central theme in any court case. And the last thing the Americans would want, being the most secretive government in the world on UFOs, in my opinion, is to have an open debate of experts coming along trying to defend him and say, well, actually, about this, there's this pilot report, this space cut, we can produce really good evidence. And there's no way they would ever want this subject debating, because we know within the field that there has been so many lies told, so much downplaying, so much media interplay with this subject to dumb down it to the public at large, that they didn't want to ever have that exposure. So I said a long time ago, never go to court, and hey presto, it never went to court, and it was kindly dropped.
Yeah, that's an interesting case. And if you don't know who Gary McKinnon is, all of you listeners, check him out. Watch some of his videos. It's a very interesting fellow who allegedly hacked NASA and military websites. It's really interesting. So
it kind of went on for about 10 years, where the American government were after him and wanted to get him into an American court, and the British were saying, well, we're not sure whether we'll send him over because he was a Brit that hacked into American intelligence and things like that. But it kind of dragged on for about 10 years. His life was on hold all that time. He couldn't get a job, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, if you look up his name, it's a very interesting story. But there's no two ways about it. The American intelligence services and government are not going to go after a guy and threaten him with 466 years of research, of prison, if he hadn't actually done what he said he did.
Exactly.
So it's ludicrous to say otherwise.
So I want to talk about, because I'm so interested, we're setting up a really, really great organization here in Utah, and I want to know some tips that you have for conducting good investigations, being a good detective when you're researching this.
Well, realistically, how long do you want to spend? You know,
Give me the abridged
it's a bit of a simplistic question, really, with a very difficult answer, because the real answer is, where my expertise could be used within the UFO field. And again, it's if we had, and we talked about it in the break, I get frustrated that we don't have enough people contributing privately, financially. You know, like I said in the break, you know, there's millions of people who say that they've been abducted. That proportionately means many of those will be wealthy, and yet I don't see these people wanting to privately. They don't have to become public, but we need people to say, well, look, I believe in what you're trying to do, trying to reach a wider audience, what Erica's trying to do, what other people are trying to do. And we need kind of donations so that we could actually be able to do more stuff. And one of the things that I would like to do, and it's not, there's an English phrase that we use, you know, don't want to teach you to suck eggs, because there's a lot of excellent, fine investigators, and MUFON have their own course and everything. But very few of them will have my background as an advanced interviewer of suspects and witnesses. So what I did for my own police officers, because what they used to say to me is, well, you're a detective. The things that you've learned, you can't tell the uniformed officers. And I'd say, well, actually, there's some little tips that are very quick to be able to help the uniformed officers and help them do better interviews. And I actually devised a course in the last 18 months of my police service where I actually did my entire division, 200 odd police officers, and went round and gave a one-day course on tips on interviewing that are just common sense things that people don't realise that could help you. Now, within the UFO field, I think if we had the money, I could say, right, okay, I would like to create a course, say a 3 or 5 day course in America, and get a lot of the top researchers in, and I'll give them my take on some of the best interviewing techniques and little things and memory tips and things like that. Now, I think that's not me being big-headed. It's just saying I've got a particular skill that could probably help other experienced and new researchers to get off on the right foot. You never stop learning, as I didn't. And some of the things I think would be really useful. And so I think there is that crossover where my skills, and everybody's got different skills, but if we all utilise those different skills, we'll have a better and more informed set of researchers and investigators. So that's where I think I'd like to do that. But it takes money and takes organisation.
But I'm sitting here,
and that's where that frustration comes in without the financial backers.
Well, and I think that people, you know, they do donate, but maybe they're donating to the place that has the flashiest website, or, you know, when, you know, if you did a little research, there are, you know, kind of lone wolves out there that are doing things that could use, that are really dedicated, know what they're talking about. You know, I always think about over at Heseltine, what they're doing, Erling Strand, you know, over there. I mean, talk about somebody who is educating a younger generation. I mean, there you go. And
Absolutely.
those are the type of people, like you. I mean, those are the type of people that need funding. I mean, we need equipment. We need to do a lot of different things. NARCAP, so many.
But wouldn't it be great though if somebody said, Gary, here you go. There's X amount of money. As long as you're using it for the right reasons, I'll support you. I don't want my name to go out there. I'm a very successful businessman, whatever. But there's the money. Put it to good use. And as long as you're accounting for it and you can show the books kind of thing and use it sensibly. But wouldn't it be great that I could say to you, oh, actually, I've just been given some money. Me and you, Erica, help me set it up in the States. I'll fly over in 2 months' time and we'll get a course together, 2-day, 3-day course of, you can help organise it at your end, and then we'll do some training on interviewing tips. Now, some people, the problem that you get into in this field, and it's a very unfortunate thing, is you get into ego. And a lot of people.
Are you kidding?
But it's held us back for many, many years.
Oh, it's
now,
ridiculous.
Let me say straight away, I have an ego. Erica Lukes clearly has an ego in the nicest possible way.
Hey, but I have no spring chicken.
No.
I can't have that much of an ego.
But what I'm saying in a very complimentary way is there's nothing wrong with having an ego, but it shouldn't be an ego that says, I'm better than you.
No.
I won't work with you because I'm better than you.
Exactly.
And unfortunately, worldwide and historically, the subject has not really moved on in its organisation from 50, 60 years ago. And as I was saying in the break, I can look at an article in Flying Saucer Review from 1957 and it's pretty much would fit in today. It's
Exactly.
as if the same arguments are being said then. We have not been able to mobilise ourselves, organise ourselves in a meaningful way on a worldwide basis.
Well, exactly. I mean, this is the thing that really drives me nuts. And I mean, I haven't been in this, I've been in this a fraction of time, but I've come in and I've watched things and the way they've gone. And I think that, it is all ego. It's, in the States, it's a bunch of researchers that don't have the cojones to say, yes, this is something unexplained and we need to research it. We still need to put ourselves in this box of just saying, oh, yes, those are Chinese lanterns, or, oh, yes, we have to, prove that all of these things are man-made, and we're overlooking the real evidence, which is there is something going on. And it's this kind of mentality that's holding us back. And it's also the fact that we are still waiting for the nuts and bolts craft, and we're not taking the data that we have and we're not analyzing the patterns that we are seeing in this data. And that is something when I came into MUFON, I was just like, wait a minute, what are we doing? What have we done with 40 years of research? We've got we've got all of this here for us to see. How do we move forward and get over the, I need to prove to you this isn't a Chinese lantern kind of crap?
Absolutely, but again, that touches on wider issues, and you really start getting into the way the mainstream media have covered the subject and creating this climate of ridicule, which has gone on certainly since 1953 with the CIA commissioned Robertson panel, and that's where they said we're going to strip the flying saucers of the aura that it's created, and we're going to work with the media to dumb down the subject. It's there in black and white. And so literally for the last 63 years, we've lived in a world of debunking. Largely, you do get some good pieces, but on the whole, it's still it's created this climate of fear where genuine people are frightened to ring up and say, I've seen something profoundly strange. And that is a terrible indictment of society and what the mainstream media have created, obviously pushed by governments in the background. And unfortunately, it's the American government who have been the worst offender on that and has set the tone for worldwide this triviality to the subject. And we should have been able to move on. But this is what I said earlier, that when the media is controlled by six big conglomerates, if they're not willing over that 50, 60 years to let you in and still want to trivialise it, then you're pretty much snookered. it's very difficult to make a breakthrough.
It is, and I understand that there's so much that's gone into this for the past 50 years, and there have been so many people that have risked their lives and their jobs and everything to bring this forward. But I think now what we're really, I think the core problem is that we are fighting amongst ourselves so much. We're, researchers, quote unquote researchers, are so busy trying to stroke their egos and prove that something, is a hoax or, blah, 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 that we're debunking each other and that we're not working together. And so
absolutely.
It's ridiculous.
Absolutely. In the break, you said we'll maybe talk about Rendlesham Forest.
Well, yeah.
Rather than 4 years of research with Colonel Holt, who wrote the Holt Memorandum, one of the top, in my opinion, one of the top 5 documents in the world, the Holt Memorandum, written in January 1981, shortly after the incident, about 2 weeks after the incident. But basically, I worked with him for 7 years, between 2007 to 2014, 2015, when I then ended that collaboration period. But I obviously got to know him pretty well, and he is an extremely important witness. But one of the reasons why I ended the association is, over time, I felt that he was, to a degree, manipulating the witnesses. And rather than, as the most senior officer involved, saying, I'm the senior officer, I saw UFOs, I wrote the Holt Memorandum, you are all my men, I will look after you. I accept that there are different events on 3 different nights. I didn't see it all, that people have got different perspectives, but we have to have an amnesty and we work together. You're all part of the jigsaw. Now that's, in my opinion, what Holt should have been doing. But over years I came to see that he actually was kind of manipulating witnesses. And at times I thought stirring the witnesses. And at various times he's had friends relationships with John Burroughs, Jim Penniston. He kind of always hated Larry Warren. Now I got to know Larry Warren because he lives in the UK. He's the original whistleblower. Whatever anybody says about him, he's the original whistleblower. I like the guy. I've met him many, many times. He co-hosts at the international conferences that I run with the magazine. He is a broken man because of what happened to him at the age of 19. Fresh out of training and his first post in his Rendlesham Forest, and then he gets caught up in this. He's made mistakes, but he's also was there. And that was confirmed recently by Adrian Bustinza, who finally nailed it and said he was there. Now, he's not without fault, but Christ, at 19 years old, who is not without fault? How do you suddenly find yourself involved in what is arguably the best case in the world, and in my opinion, a much better case than Roswell, good though that is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
This is 3 successive nights of UFO activity at or near the base, in between the 2 twin bases of RAF Bentwaters and RAF Woodbridge. It involves nuclear weapons. Holt confirmed on a video to me that he changed the radio frequency to the tower frequency on the night he was out, the 3rd night of activity, 27th into the 28th of December, and basically he heard on the radio that the guy in the tower, the weapons storage area tower, a nuclear weapons storage area tower, was saying, and he did it for me privately on a video, at the top of that weapons storage area tower for a documentary, where we were doing some downtime of the documentary, he'd filmed for me a sequence where he says, I turned the radio frequency and heard the guy in the tower saying that beams were being shone down from a UFO into the nuclear bunkers. He didn't say the word nuclear because he's high ranking. If you asked him, he will never go public. But then many years later, when we were collaborating, and I recently went public in the national media after a lot of thought, he'd said in front of my wife, who corroborates what I've said, that whilst we were doing some filming in Rendlesham, the 3 of us, Holt, me and my wife, she was filming us on her iPhone, doing various little bits. It wasn't caught on camera, but she well remembers it. He said there were more nuclear weapons at the Bentwaters weapons storage area than anywhere else in Europe. And the point is, not that they were illegal, because it's a nuclear weapons storage area, but they shouldn't have been there. And what a lot of people forget about Rendlesham is the circumstances. And I recently did a show with Linda Moulton Howe and John Burroughs. We discussed this at length. But the context is never really set, certainly in the media, the mainstream media, is that at the time of Rendlesham Forest, the Polish shipyard workers in Gdansk under Lech Wałęsa, who went on to become the Prime Minister of Poland, they were rising and going against the Soviet regime. It was still under the Soviet satellite system of nations and the Soviet Union. And so in December, late December 1980, there were hundreds of thousands of Soviet troops massing on the borders of Poland. And it looked like they were going to go in and to take it back. And for the people who are old enough to remember, in Hungary, I think 1968, the Hungarians had risen up against the Soviets, and then basically the Soviets had gone in and smashed them to pieces and took over. Now, it looked like that was going to happen. So that's a world media event, worldwide, nervous time.
Absolutely. Wait, I've got to cut you off right there because we're going to take a break. So I just want to say we're having a great time tonight. I'm Erica Lukes. Stick around for Fantopia Friday. Last segment of the show. We will be right back.
Stand by.
This is UFO Classified with Erica Lukes.
Erica Lukes.
The phone lines are open now at 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio. More UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
With Erica Lukes on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. After this.
3 guys, no ties.
You wouldn't want Hillary in here to talk to us?
I don't believe her.
Okay.
I just wouldn't. What would I say to her? I wouldn't even.
It would be an interesting interview.
So how much is that shirt cost?
And this is exactly how it go. Okay.
You're lying.
So what the hell really happened at Benghazi?
Right. That's what
I'm done.
Right.
All right.
Well, guys,
because I wouldn't let her off.
3 guys, no ties. Wednesday night, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific. Right here on the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
Monday night at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern, we take the KCOR Digital Radio Network off the grid and go deep inside the paranormal vault. Jump on the elevator and come take the ride down the rabbit hole of reality with BK Mojave and The Watcher as they unlock the vault and dust off some of their classified paranormal case files even the government doesn't know about. The Paranormal Vault. Mondays at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern. Exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. This is the one show our secret government fears will speak the truth.
There's a show that's not afraid to ask questions no one else will ask. Not afraid to say
what no one else will say.
Friday nights at 7 p.m. Listen to Restricted Airspace with Tina Marie, where no topic is off limits. Conspiracy theories, paranormal activities, hoaxes, the unexplained. It's what we talk about. Question everything. Trust no one. Restricted Airspace with Tina Marie. Friday at 7 p.m. on the KCOR Digital Radio Network out of Las Vegas, Nevada.
This is the world-famous KCOR.
That's the only station I listen to.
Friday night, 9 p.m. Pacific. Jump onto the Celestial Highway and travel at the speed of light. Into hyperspace. Hyperspace. Hosted by Solaris Blue Raven. She navigates you through the cosmic tides of mysticism into the world of covert technology, UFOs, mystical sciences, and the world of unforeseen forces.
You get to really sort of enjoy a bizarre ride.
Listen live, Friday night, 9 p.m. Pacific.
For hyperspace.
The one show that blows the whistle off our government black ops projects. Hyperspace, hosted by Solaris Blue Raven.
Solaris Blue Raven.
Exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
Want to take a ride? Take a ride. Take a ride.
You're listening to
UFO Classified with Erica Lukes, where the truth isn't hidden beneath the black lines of a Sharpie.
That's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
To be on with Erica, call 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio.
Radio contact.
Share your thoughts on the show on Twitter by using hashtag KCOR. Or head over to the live chats at KCORradio.com.
The audience goes nuts!
And now, your host of UFO Classified.
Are you ready?
Erica Lukes.
Erica Lukes.
I can't believe this is the final segment. I have to say that I am kind of in mourning because this has been a great show, and I will be very excited to have Gary back. He is a brilliant researcher. He knows so much about investigating things and reading witnesses. And we were talking a little bit about the Rendlesham debacle. I mean, this is such a great case, but now there's so much political crap and name calling and all of this stuff going on. So, do you think that's ever going to end?
I hope so. But realistically, what needs to happen is that Holt, because of his high rank, needs to actually be the one to say, okay, let's have an amnesty. We've just got to stop this arguing. And unfortunately, it strikes me that he will never do that, because what he'll say is, and he said it to me many times, I won't speak on the same platform as Larry Warren. Well, Larry Warren was a 19-year-old green recruit who happens to be the whistleblower, and he probably is hacked off that it led him to become known within the subject, and he probably feared for his career and all those things, although he did become a full colonel afterwards, so it didn't affect his career. But he probably went through that stage of thinking, Christ, if this goes public, I understand all that. But the bottom line is, you have to have an amnesty to allow witnesses. I've talked to John Burroughs when I first met him in May 2010, and we shared a room. Not in the biblical sense, but we shared a room.
Well, that's comforting. Thanks for clarifying.
Well, he is, because he's a big lad. I mean, tall. He's very tall. Yeah. And but basically, we talked for hours about Rendlesham. It was custodian because I was interested, and he's one of the principal witnesses. And he told me that he knew of other witnesses who had never gone public because of all the shenanigans and the way that the media treated them and trivialized and ridiculed. And I fully understand that. But one of the things that we have to kind of get beyond is we've got to just accept, and I'd say to people with Rendlesham, forget about all the personalities. If you just look at what we do know, we've got an absolutely fantastic case. Stripped bare, I do an evidential review of it from obviously a detective's point of view. And you strip it away, you have still got 3 nights of activity with multiple witnesses, ground trace evidence, now radar evidence have come to light through Robert Hastings' book, UFOs and Nukes. Absolutely fantastic stuff. We're a lot further on in many ways, but we just have to accept that different people have got different aspects of the story, different pieces of the jigsaw. And one of the things that I learned as a detective is it's not about getting the big things. Where cases and complex murders are solved and rape cases and things like that, it's the minutiae. It's the small pieces that nobody thinks are important that then suddenly become significant. What we have with Rendlesham, without a shadow of a doubt, is a fantastic case that at a time of world crisis, UFOs turn up. And the reason why I decided to release the information of that comment that Holt said in front of my wife is that it's important, because it really does provide a clear motive for me, in my opinion, as to why they turn up. At a time of world crisis, they turn up and go, What the hell are those in there? They are potentially destabilizing the Earth. Now, people who don't know the subject may laugh at that, but the reality is that if you watch UFOs and nukes, it shows it so clearly that for 50, 60, 70 years, literally from the start of the modern era, UFOs turn up over nuclear power plants.
Yes, they do. And it's a great documentary. I've watched it several times.
It's the best documentary because all the people that are featured there, many of whom have never gone on camera, are senior military officers telling their cases. Nuclear weapons being shut down by beams being shone down into nuclear silos, like in 1967 with Captain Robert Salas, with cases in Russia where they actually trigger them into a launch sequence, causing consternation, and then switch them off. There's a clear interest in UFOs and atomic nuclear weapons. And that's well established. But the public don't realise that because they're sadly, never going to get shown that documentary UFOs and Nukes on mainstream TV.
Yes.
Where everybody every man and their dog would see it. If they did, I guarantee you that people would not look at the subject of UFOs afterwards the way they did beforehand. And that's what we've got to get through. We have to. That should be shown. That documentary should be shown in every college, high school. Everybody should see it because straight away it establishes the validity, and with the brilliant CGI graphics, it brings it to light. Plus the testimony of these high-quality senior military people for the first time gathered under one documentary. Fantastic. It should be the basic. Have you seen that documentary?
I've seen it several times.
But what I'm saying is to the public, you should say to somebody about UFOs, do you know anything about UFOs? No. Watch that documentary and then come back and tell me what you think. That's what it should be. So if anybody makes decisions about UFOs without having seen that documentary, then they're fools, because that puts it clearly into context how real, whilst there's many facets to this subject, there is certainly a structured kind of nuts and bolts craft element, and that's the part that interests me, because that's where I come from in an evidential background. I can relate to that, although I fully accept we're now looking at interdimensional multiverse, very complicated, but my area of expertise is what would stand up in a court of law, and the testimony of those people, along with the documentary evidence, the reports that came from the nukes being shut down, that's documentary evidence that you could put up in a court of law, and you would win in a hypothetical jury situation. We would be able to prove without a shadow of a doubt that some UFOs, perhaps only 3%, were ET. We would do it without a shadow of a doubt if we could only organise ourselves and also have the opportunity through the media moguls to say, look, time is changing. But just moving in, I know time is ticking, but we are moving towards that time. And we actually could be in a time now. I know Steve Bassett, met him several times. I recently was in San Marino at a conference, which is in Italy, or it's a separate country, little republic next to Italy. And basically, I then saw him again in London, and he's doing loads to promote the Rockefeller Initiative. Now, it's getting a lot of media attention in Washington Times, New York Times, things like that.
He's doing a great job.
Now, he's doing a great job. And I said, look, I want to try to help in the UK and raise the awareness. And we've had some stories out in the UK. And hence one of the reasons why I brought the whole story out, because it highlights that things need to be looked at in a different way. But what I'm saying is that at some point, now that Hillary Clinton, regardless of what I think to her on a private level, she has now got the nomination, and it is going to come up at some point as she runs for election against Trump. It's going to come up, and while she's been on the TV shows with Kimmel and whatever, that show's going to go on again as it gets towards the election. And somebody, and you must wait for this, you must wait for this question that's not been asked of her already, not on TV. When you hear on TV the question, what was your involvement in the Rockefeller Initiative, you then go from potentially fringe to mainstream in a very quick fashion. Why? Because we know that she had a very heavy involvement over several years with active researchers, senior politicians in the Clinton administration, her husband's administration, 20 years ago. This is real, right? And she was not just somebody who was making a little bit of a joke, yeah, I'll get the files out kind of thing. She was heavily involved, and there were 10 or 11 active UFO researchers involved in that Rockefeller Initiative that lasted over 3-4 years. So if she is asked that question on TV, especially in the States, on the big TV network shows, she has a choice. She either dumbs it down or tells the truth. I think if she lied, it would quickly come out because it's all in the papers. And all the new nationals are primed with the Rockefeller Initiative documents, over 1,000 pages. Grant Cameron's got through the Freedom of Information Act. So all of the new national papers, the main papers, are primed. But that question has deliberately not come up on mainstream TV. But when it does, you can guarantee that she's going to have to tell the truth, because if she lied, it would then come out as a lie. So she can't take that gamble. So when that question, so look out for it, people in America, when it's going to come in the run-up to the election, what was your involvement in the Rockefeller Initiative? And when she then comes out and says, well, actually, I worked on it for 3-4 years, blah, 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 heavily involved with active UFO researchers, thousands of documents were obtained, the best evidence, I believe in ET basically, that is going to suddenly take ufology from being a fringe subject for 70 years, potentially into the mainstream in one foul swoop, because we really then have a different equation going into being the president. And
Absolutely.
That could be a game changer.
Yeah.
So Steve Bassett believes that, and I think he's onto something if that question is asked.
And I think it is really interesting to me to see, Podesta, Clinton, NASA. I mean, there are people that people pay attention to, obviously, and I think that they're making really critical statements right now. And to me,
it's never happened. There has never been, certainly not since the 40s and the 50s, there has never been the amount of national coverage that there is now.
Exactly.
Okay? Never been as much.
And I think that, there are too many, when you're looking at privatizing space and you're looking at people sending satellites up, there's so many different things that right now we've got taking place. We've got information that is being shared and you can't stop it on the internet, and groups looking here and there all over the world and sharing information about things. I mean, I know that you can't, obviously, something is going to happen, and it's going to happen very, very soon.
I do lots of lectures, and what I say at my lectures, I do think there is a chance with this Rockefeller Initiative that it will suddenly take hold in a massive way, and the millions of people are going to suddenly be exposed to somebody that was not just making a bit of a joke about Area 51, but actually knows a lot more, and that will take it into a different direction. But the reality is that there are so many people waiting in the wings who would come out, military people, radar people, loads of people will come out if only in a sense, the conditions were right, that they're not going to get ridiculed, they don't fear for the job. And that's going to happen. But what I say at my lectures is, the clock for me is already running. And in the sense of, I think 2013, a lot of mainstream in the US and in England, science, mainstream journals said that with the new array of radio telescopes coming on, that within 20 years, that they would detect an intelligent signal, a civilized intelligent signal. So that, in a sense, has set the clock running. So 2013, 20 years, 2033. So the way I look at it is that by 2033, it's going to happen at the very latest. So the clock is ticking. We're already in 2016. But what I foresee is that in the run-up, without anything else happening that we're unaware of, some new dimension that we're unaware of, as things stand, the TV stations, mainstream, they're going to suddenly, in the run-up to 2033, going to think, well, it's only going to be a matter of a year or two, and we're actually going to get a signal. If that's true, we're going to have to totally look at the subject of UFOs in a totally new light. And they're going to have to start telling the truth and really doing the investigative journalism that they should have been doing all these 50, 60 years. Right. And it will lead to a whole new interest, and they will start to tell the truth. Because the reality is, whether they like it or not, because of the improvements in technology, we are probably going to be, and hopefully I will be around, you will be around, but we, and certainly our children are going to be around, that they are going to be the first generations who are there at official contact.
Oh, I have no doubt about that. I have no doubt about that. We're going to see that.
That is going to be the most profound thing in human history. Everybody acknowledges that when official contact is acknowledged, it will be the most profound step in human history.
Oh, my God. It's going to be amazing.
And that's coming.
It is. I have no doubt about that. And I want to ask you, because this has been something that I've wanted to ask you actually for quite some time, but, you know, what do you think about the ET contact groups? Do you think that they can meditate and communicate with beings?
I think the reality is probably yes. And I say that because I've never meditated. I've never had been able to get on kind of like the astral plane, highway and what. I've never even tried. It's not for me. But that's not to say that other people can't. And it would be very arrogant to say that they can't. So for me, and with all, I believe in abduction. I believe that there are millions of people who have been abducted. And you've got to realise that that is the case, because it's the same stories told all around the world. Even in the third world, without access to TV and radio, they're still saying that they're getting taken aboard something, they're getting examined by something, they're having their blood taken, there's medical experience. Well, how can people in the third world with no access to media of any form come out with the same story that happens worldwide? You've only got to look at the animal mutilation subject that occurs worldwide. Jaw strips, organs removed, no blood, not predator. This is not just some sick Satanist. This is on a worldwide scale. So there is very definitely things going on involving ET. So for me, the evidence is overwhelming if you know where to look. But the reality, what I was going to say is, so yes, I think people can communicate. It's not something I've done, but I believe it that some abductions are genuine. And there's so many similarities around the world that it has to be real. It's a validation moment for me.
Do you think that they're good or they're bad? You know, because you get some people that say...
I think there's probably many species. I don't know. I don't have a clue. I've never met an alien, right? But the bottom line is, I suspect that there are many species, and I suspect that probably the majority are good, because you would think that if they're highly evolved and superior intellectually and technologically, they could have taken over had they wanted to many years ago. That hasn't happened. Why, I don't know. But I suspect there's many species coming here, but the majority are probably fine. But clearly those people who are abducted, many people find that a terrifying experience that goes on throughout their life. Some become reconciled to it and get used to it, but certainly initially it's terrifying. You have stories where fetuses are implanted, removed, terrifying. You have animal mutilations. Well, the cows don't have to be killed, the sheep don't have to be killed, the deer don't have to be killed. So that's clearly some species, to me, look like they're doing some kind of genetic experiment. What that is, what it means, I don't have a clue. But clearly there's some elements that are not so good. But, the UFOs and nukes, clearly some UFOs have got an interest in nuclear weapons. Now, I suspect that that's because they live here in our deepest oceans. I do think that when we only know 1% of the oceans, that means we don't know 99%. It makes sense that it could be their habitat. And the film The Abyss, it's a great science fiction film, I think is probably a lot closer to the truth. That in our deepest trenches, in that 99% we don't know, it's their planet as well. They've been here for a long time as a base. So to me, it's not necessarily that they're coming from light years away or whatever. They could already be here for thousands of years.
Yes, I agree. And I think a lot of people
that's why they're interested in nuclear weapons, because they could destroy our habitat and invariably their habitat as well.
So do you think that some people are more prone to connect with them, or do you think that people that have a sighting have frequent sightings?
I've met people who are what I would call repeaters. They get a feeling in their stomach, they go outside, they see something. They can't explain it. Some people see UFOs regularly. It doesn't make sense. I knew a guy who'd had over 200 daytime clips in the UK called Anthony Woods. Fantastic footage, very largely not known because he withdrew a lot of it after Graham Birdsall died, and in his documentary kind of didn't really take off because Graham Birdsall died and the magazine closed. But he had some fantastic, and he had a bad heart, so he was at home all the time, and basically he and his neighbour, I think it was his brother-in-law, something like that, he would get a feeling to go outside, and he'd just set the camera going, and they would see lots of stuff, and multiple objects, different shaped objects, different coloured objects, and I got involved in the making of the documentary, which was the last one done by UFO magazine before he died, and basically I looked and reviewed over 200 sequences, and on the face of it you think, no, nobody can see 200 sequences, but this guy did, and I've met others that have similar kind of feelings. So no, I think some people are repeaters, some people are more in tune.
Absolutely. And that's great to know, because we've got a fellow that is listening tonight that I know goes out with his camera and captures some amazing things. And I think there are other people all over the world, including myself, it's just, once you are open to that, you just have some really interesting sightings. And I don't know what that is, if you make a conscious connection, if there is, you just shift your awareness. I don't know what it is, but it's very profound.
One of the things that I do now, and I've got very interested in the last 3 or 4 years, is night vision. And I have some night vision goggles. And on nice nights, not that we get that great star quality in the UK, but on nice nights, I go out there and I film. And I have filmed many different strange objects in the night sky. And at some point, we'll find the time to edit all of those. But I'm only capturing what other people with night vision. So, we could do a whole show on night vision.
Well, then you're going to have to come back then. And actually, when I come over to the UK, we're going to have to just at least go to lunch. You've got to promise me that.
Well, you're in Scotland, aren't you? In Edinburgh?
No, you know what? We're going to go there, but we're actually just going to hang out around England, maybe Wales. It'll be fun.
Whereabouts? I mean, you're more than welcome to come and stay with us. But,
Lord, have mercy.
But England's not just like 5 miles, I know it's not very big, but it's about 200 or 300 miles from A to B.
Well, that's okay. Just as long as I could just at least, hang out for 2 seconds, and I just think it'd
be good together. And we never got to talk about what we said we were going to talk about. Is the show that we nearly got. So here's a challenge. Here's a challenge for all of your listeners. And I want them to contact me at heseltinegary@hotmail.com. And do they understand? Blah, 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 yeah. Now, the reason why I've done that is because if you can understand that, then you're very clever. The reality is that if you've listened to this show for the last 2 hours, they would not give Erica and myself a TV show based on UFO detectives, on my premise of UFO detectives. They wouldn't, the executives in America, all the other countries would, but the executives in charge of the money would not give the money for the go-ahead for the show because they said that the Americans would not understand me. Blah, blah, blah. Hee-ha, hoo-ha, ha, ha, ha. Now, if I talk like that, then I think they'd have a point. But I want all of your listeners to send me a message, did you understand me during the last 2 hours? If you did, you should get onto these executives and say, this guy should have a show with Erica Luke.
I absolutely agree, and I think we should, and I think we'd be fabulous together, and we could go rock it out. And I knew we would have a great time tonight. We've got to wrap it up, but I will have you back as soon as possible, and I'll be calling you. Oh my gosh, that was so much fun. Thank you so much for staying up late, and I hope you have a great night.
The dogs now.
I know you got. Oh dear, and I will keep everybody posted. I've got links to all of your sites.
Let me give you a quick offer.
Yes.
The UFO Truth magazine, 96-page e-zine, sent directly to your email, right? Bi-monthly. It features all the top people in the world: Stanton Friedman, A.J. Gervais, Richard Dolan, Peter Robbins, all of them kind of thing. Right, Grant Cameron, they've all appeared in. Right, the point is, if you email me at heseltinegary@hotmail.com, I will give you a sample copy of any one of the 18 issues so far.
Oh, that's so awesome. Thank you so much. And I will post everything. I hope all of you guys have a great night. Stick around for the ladies are going to rock it out on Fantopia Friday. Next week, Alan Bentz will be here, and then Chris Bledsoe the following week. Be safe, and I will catch you next week.
Listen very carefully.
This is Houston. Say again, please. Houston, we've had a problem.
This is UFO Classified, live every Friday night, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. The truth is out there, just waiting to be discovered.
And now, if you will, accompany me on a journey to the future.
For more information on the host of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes, upcoming guests, as well as links to the past shows,
visit her website at UFOclassified.com.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio.